Hello, grade 12 learners. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Today we will be dealing with business studies when it comes to paper 2, possible questions that we should expect on tomorrow's paper. We won't be wasting that much time. It's all about you listening to what I will be telling you and also trying to jot down what I will be telling you. All of you, you are welcome. Before we take that much time, good people, I was suggesting that today we should start with the questions that we should expect when it comes to business roles. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to start with the questions that we should expect when it comes to business roles. I hope every one of you, you are having a book and a pen where you are so that you can jot down the notes. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, good people. We're going to start with what business roles today. That's what we will start with. We're going to start with the notes of business roles or the questions that we should expect when it comes to business roles. I believe that makes sense. Remember, on question 2, we have two main topics. We have business ventures and the business roles. I believe that makes sense. I said to you last time, when it comes to business studies, when it comes to the notes of business roles, I am going to start with the notes of what ethics and professionalism. We're going to start with the notes of ethics and professionalism. So everything that I'm going to tell you, make sure that you go and study it. I believe that makes sense. And something that I didn't mention, good people, I don't think it's going to show in our examination. I believe that makes sense. So the first thing that we should know, we must be able to elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. Does that make sense? So we must be able to elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. That's the first question that we should expect in our examination. And you are going to remember me tomorrow when you are writing. Elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. Does that make sense? So you must be able to elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. That's the first question that we should understand. What are we simply talking about when we talk about ethical behavior? When we talk about ethical behavior, it refers to acting in way consistent with what society and individuals thinks are good values. I believe that makes sense. Number two, when we talk about ethical behavior, what are we simply talking about? It's an ethical behavior which is expected from every employee in the workplace or in the business. I believe that makes sense. I said the first question that we should expect, elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. Now I'm saying that ethical behavior is expected from every employee in the business. Number two, I said to you, ethical behavior refers to acting in ways consistent with what society and individuals thinks are good values. I believe that makes sense. I believe that makes sense. We are moving forward to the next question. We are moving forward to the next question. We're not going to waste that much time. The next question that we should understand, good people, we must be able to outline differences between ethical and professional behavior. Lot of candidates, they make mistakes when it comes to this question. When it comes to doing what? Outline differences between ethical and professional behavior. Lot of candidates, they are making lot of mistakes, to be understand. So I just want to fix that mistakes. Remember, good people, when we talk about professional behavior and ethical behavior are two different things, but at the same time, they want to be the same. By saying so, I'm simply meaning to you that when we talk about professional behavior, what are we simply talking about? When we talk about professional behavior, it refers to what is wrong or right or acceptable, where in the business, that's what professional behavior. I believe that makes sense. Professional behavior refers to what is wrong or right or acceptable where in the business. That's what professional behavior. Number two, about professional behavior is that it's a set of standard accepted or expected behavior. Does that make sense? Let me repeat this point. Set of standard of expected behavior. The last point that we can take on professional behavior is that applying a code of conduct of the business. I believe that makes sense. That means for you to apply the code of conduct of the business, you are being what? Professional. Does that make sense? Then now, let us talk about what? Ethical behavior. What are we simply talking about when we talk about ethical behavior? When we talk about the ethical behavior, good people, it refers to the principles of what is right and wrong or acceptable, where in the society, that's the difference between professional behavior and ethical behavior. Professional behavior in the business, then ethical behavior where in a society. I believe that makes sense. The second point that we should know when it comes to what ethical behavior, good people, is that it conforms to set of values that are morally acceptable. That's what ethical. I believe that makes sense. The last thing that we should know when it comes to what ethical behavior, you must know that it forms part of code of conduct to guide employees to act ethical. I believe that we are now understanding. When we come to professional behavior, it's a what? It's applying the code of conduct of the business. But when we go to ethical behavior, it's what? It forms part of that code of conduct to guide employees on how to act ethical. I believe that makes sense. Can we move forward to the next question? Good people, there is something that I also want to make you aware of. When we talk about King Code principles, there are three things that you should think about always. They would never change. King Code principles. When we talk about the King Code principles, we are talking about what? Transparency. As a business studies candidate, you must know what is transparency, what is being transparent. Does that make sense? Number two, you must know accountability. What is accountability and how to account as an individual, as the business. Does that make sense? And also, as a business candidate, you must know what is responsibility. Those are the three King Code principles. So you must know all of them. You must know transparency. You must know accountability. You must know responsibility. Just to highlight you a little about transparency, that what are we simply talking about? When we talk about the transparency, good people, when we talk about the transparency, we are talking about what? Actions must be clear to all stakeholders. The actions must be clear to all stakeholders. I believe that makes sense. You get your 2 marks. Actions must be clear to all stakeholders. You get your 2 marks. Does that make sense? Staffing and other processes should be open and transparent. You get your other 2 marks. That's what, good people, transparency. Does that make sense? Employees should be aware of the employment policies of the business. You get your other 2 marks. Already, good people, you have 6 marks in that question. Does that make sense? I believe it makes a lot of sense. No one must go and fail, good people. The last thing that I can also give you when it comes to transparency is that auditing and other reports must be accurate to employees. I believe that makes sense. Auditing and other Reports must be accurate to employees. Actions must be clear to all stakeholders. Staffing and other processes should be open and transparent. Employees should be aware of the employment policies of the business. Auditing and other report must be accurate to employees. That's what they expect you to give when it comes to what? Transparency. I believe we now understand what is transparency, good people. When we talk about the transparency, we are talking about see-through, something that we can see. I believe that makes sense, my good people. Let us now move to accountability. We have to understand what is to account, good people. As a business candidate, as you will be writing tomorrow, you must understand what is to account. What is what? Accountability. Does that make sense? When we talk about the accountability, good people, there must be regular communication between management and stakeholders. There must be what? Regular communication between management and stakeholders, so that good people, they can account. Does that make sense? And good people, the other thing that we should know, the company should appoint internally and external auditors to audit what? Financial statements, so that we can account, saying that no man, the team of externally, it did this and that, and then the team of internally, it did this and that. I believe that makes sense. And the business should be accountable for their actions. Does that make sense? So when any action that is being done by the business, they must be held accountable. Those are the things that they are expecting you to give tomorrow. Then let us talk about the responsibility. What are we simply talking about when you are being responsible, good people? When we talk about the responsibility, the business should develop and implement programs that should aim at protecting the community in which they operate. That means when the business is operating in a certain place, it must develop or implement programs that will be protecting what? The communities. Does that make sense? That means now, good people, the business operations mustn't affect what? The community. I believe that makes sense. You cannot fail these things, good people. Then here's another question that we should expect. Recommend or advise ways in which professional, responsible, ethical, and effective business practice should be conducted. How can they be conducted? In other words, in this question, they are asking that how can a business be professional? How can a business be responsible? How can a business be ethical? Does that make sense? That's what they are simply asking to you. To show that the business, good people, is professional, responsible, ethical. Business should treat all their employees equal, regardless of their gender. You get your 2 marks. Businesses should treat all their employees equal, regardless of race, gender, color, age. You get your 2 marks. Number 2, mission statement should include values of equality or respect. The third one, treat all employees with respect by recognizing work well done. Those are the things that we should put when they want to see that the business is ethical, it's responsible, and so forth and so on. The other one, all workers should have access to equal opportunities. I believe that makes sense. The workers should have what? Access to equal opportunities. That means the workers, they must have what? Equal opportunities. I believe now we can move forward. Here's another question, good people. Here's another question that we should expect in our examination. We must be able to identify from a given scenario. What are we identifying, good people? We are identifying transparency. We are identifying responsibility. We are identifying accountability. So when you are reading a scenario, you must be able to dictate that, no man, in this scenario, there is what accountability in this business. In this scenario, there is transparency. In this scenario, there is responsibility. I believe that makes sense. And the other thing that we should identify in our scenario, we must be able to identify, good people, unethical business practice. We must be able to identify what unethical business practice. We must be able to identify unethical business practice. I believe that makes sense. So when we talk about unethical business practice, and this question, good people, is going to be there. It's going to be there. So when we talk about unethical business practice that we should identify in a scenario, number one, we are talking about sexual harassment. Number one, we are talking about sexual harassment. So when you are reading the scenario, if ever they're talking about sexual harassment, you must be able to dictate that, no man, here it's sexual harassment. You get your 2 marks. And then you motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Those things are very simple. What is a sexual harassment, good people? It's whereby now managers who promise employees promotion if they agree to have a relationship with them. That's what a sexual harassment. Number two, which we should identify in a scenario, unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. So whenever in a scenario they are talking about fraud, you must think of what unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Whenever in a scenario they're talking about employees who download music, movies, while, using the business resources. That's what unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. When they're talking about an employee who uses business resources for his or her own personal gain, that's what unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Does that make sense? Let us move to another unethical business practice. What are we simply talking about? We are talking about abuse of work time. Abuse of work time, it's what? Unethical business practice. What is an abuse of work time, good people? We are simply talking about what? Making personal calls during work hours. Making what? Personal calls during work hours. That's what? The abuse of work time. Taking extended lunch breaks. That's what? Abuse of work time. Doing personal business during work hours. That's what? Abuse of work time. I believe we are now understanding. The other one that we should also understand or know, good people, it's unfair advertising. It's unfair advertising. What are we simply talking about when we talk about unfair advertising? When we talk about unfair advertising, it's giving goods false labeling. When we are giving goods false labeling, that's what? Unfair advertising. Number two, selling second-hand goods as new goods. That's what? Unfair advertising, because I told that person, this thing, it's new, I've never used it. All to find that I did use it. I believe that makes sense. Exaggerating the merit of product or false promises. Just imagine if ever I'm having a product that I believe that it can make people lose weight, and then I say, by drinking this product you will lose 5 kgs in a second. That's a lie. That can't be happening. I believe that makes sense. The other one, unethical business practice that we should know, pricing of goods in rural areas, good people. What are we talking about? Inflation, inflating prices, charging higher for goods of inferior quality in rural areas. I believe that makes sense. The last one that we should know, unethical business practice. It's going to be what? Taxation. It's either you call it taxation or you call it tax evasion. It's either you call it taxation or you call it tax evasion. I believe that makes sense. So I'm going to repeat again this what? Unethical business practice, which is, I said, is going to be what? Taxation. That's number one. Number two, pricing of goods in rural areas. Number three, we will be talking about unfair advertising. Number four, abuse of work time. Number five, we will be talking about what? Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Number six, good people, we will be talking about what? Sexual harassment. So whenever you are reading a scenario and then they say you must identify from a given scenario, what are you identifying? Unethical business practice. I'm expecting you to think of those 6 things that I've just mentioned now. I'm expecting everyone to think of those 6 things: sexual harassment, unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources, abuse of work time, unfair advertising, pricing of goods in rural areas, tax evasion. Those are the things that I'm expecting you to think of. I believe that makes sense, my good people. Let us now move to the next question. The question, it's going to say to you, recommend or advise ways in which the business could deal with the above mentioned types of unethical business practice. So you must know, how can we deal with sexual harassment? You must know, how can we deal with unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources? You must know, how can we deal with tax evasion? You must know, how can we deal with what? Pricing of goods in rural areas. You must know, how can we deal with what? Unfair advertising. I believe that makes sense. I believe that makes sense. For instance, let me just give you 2 points on this sexual harassment, because remember, today our focus is to give you the questions or possible questions. There is a video whereby I'm teaching the notes of ethics and professionalism. So if you can do yourself a favor after this live, go to my channel, subscribe, and search ethics and professionalism. Good people, you're gonna get everything that I'm talking about. Sexual harassment. How can we deal with the sexual harassment in the business? How can we deal with sexual harassment in the business? We must educate employers on sexual harassment matters. You get your 2 marks. Educate employers on sexual harassment matters. You get your 2 marks. Number 2, you must implement internal complaints and disciplinary procedures. You get your 2 marks. Formulate a policy regarding sexual harassment. You get your 2 marks. Serious cases on sexual harassment should be reported to the appropriate institution, such as what? South African Police Service. I believe that makes sense. Ensure compliance with the law of the business. How can we deal with what? Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources in the business? We must conduct regular audits. We must identify risk areas. We must introduce fraud prevention strategies. And good people, we must limit the number of employees having access to business funds. I believe that makes sense. Then how can we deal with what? Abuse of work time. We must speak directly to those employees who abuse work time. We must the code of conduct should contain clear rules about abuse of work time. We must monitor employees to ensure that tasks are completed. How can we deal with unfair advertising? Customers must report unfair advertising to the Advertising Standard Authority. And the businesses should be encouraged to keep their advertising fair in line with the Constitution. How can we deal with the pricing of goods in rural areas? By charging fair prices for goods and services. And we must avoid unethical business practice to attract what? Customer loyalty. How can we deal with what? Tax evasion or taxation in a business? Submit all tax returns on time. Keep financial records honestly and accurate. We must conduct regular checks of all financial record and audits. Those are the things, good people, that I need you to know when they say, how can we deal with unprofessional business practice? Those are the things that we are simply talking about. Can we now move forward? Do you allow me to move forward to the next questions? I said the possible essays on question 6, which is going to be business roles. It may be creative thinking and problem solving. But I say to you, the essay is going to be ethics and professionalism. Does that make sense? I believe that makes sense. Okay, here's the questions that I want to give you now, which I believe they're going to be very much helpful on practicing the essay on question 6. The first question, distinguish between ethical and professional behavior. Distinguish between ethical and professional behavior. Distinguish between ethical and professional behavior. That's the first question that I want you to write it down. Distinguish between ethical and professional behavior as your essay. The second question, explain how businesses can use transparency and accountability as a part of King Code principles. Explain how businesses can use transparency and accountability as a part of King Code principles. That's the second question that I want you to write it as your essay. The third question, you must advise businesses on how the following unethical business pose a challenge to the business operations. Number one, we must now talk about what unfair advertising and examples. So you must know the unfair advertising and give the examples. Does that make sense? Know the unfair advertising and give the examples. Number two, you must the pricing of goods in rural areas. The last one, it's going to be what? Taxation or tax evasion. I believe that makes sense. Then the last question in our essay, they're going to say to you, suggest ways in which business could deal with the above mentioned types of unethical business practice. 40 marks. You just have to go and study those things. That's 40 marks. Then I'm going to give you the second essay now. I'm going to give you the second essay under business roles. The essay can come in this way. Elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. Elaborate on the meaning of ethical behavior. Explain how the following unprofessional business practice can pose a challenge to the business. Number one, we have sexual harassment. Number two, unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. The last one, abuse of work time. Then the next question, it's going to say that recommend ways in which businesses could deal with above mentioned types of unprofessional business practice. Then the last one would say suggest ways in which professional, responsible, ethical, and effective business practice should be conducted. Then I want to give you the last questions of the essays. Then we move to the next chapter or the next questions that I believe they're going to be there in your examination. The first one will say, elaborate on the meaning of professional behavior. Elaborate on the meaning of professional behavior. Explain how the three types of unethical business practice pose challenge to businesses. Discuss ways in which business could deal with these types of unethical business practice in the workplace. Suggest ways in which professional, responsible, ethical, and effective business practice should be conducted. Those are the questions that we should expect when it comes to what? The notes of ethics and professionalism. Then now, I want us to move to the next questions that we should know, good people. Which now, we are still on business roles. Don't forget that one. We are still on business roles. Let us not forget that we are still on the business roles. So now I want us to move to the notes of what? Problem solving and creative thinking. Creative thinking and problem solving. Tell me when you are ready. If there is something that you didn't get, you're going to go back and watch the live again. Just be ready to write the questions. The first questions that we should expect: differentiate between problem solving and decision making. Differentiate between problem solving and decision making. What's the difference, good people, between decision making and problem solving? When we talk about decision making, it's often done by one person or a member of a senior management who makes it authoritarian. I hope that makes sense. Then, when we talk about the problem solving, problem can be solved by a group or a team or an individual team member. That's the difference between these two terms. Decision making is often done by one person or a member of a senior management who makes it authoritarian. Then problem solving, problem can be solved by a group or a team or an individual member or team member. That's the difference. You get your 4 marks. When they say differentiate between problem solving and decision making. The second questions that we should understand, good people. The second questions that we should understand on the second question is that explain the problem solving steps. You must be able to explain the problem solving steps. What are the problem solving steps? Identify the problem, define the problem, identify possible solutions to the problem, select the most appropriate alternative, develop an action plan, implement the suggested solution, monitor the implementation of the solution or of the action plan, evaluate the implemented solution. So you must be able to do what? To apply problem solving steps. When we talk about applying the problem solving steps, good people, or explaining, what are they simply meaning to us? You must identify exactly the problem. That's what, when we identify the problem, we must identify exact problem. By saying so, we must acknowledge that there is a problem. Already in this question, you got about 6 marks. Let us move to define problem. When you say define problem, you must be able to explain it. Only just one point. You explain only one point. How do we define the problem? You must define the possible causes of the problem. You get your 3 marks. You must define the possible causes of the problem. Or the nature of the problem must be precise. I believe that makes sense. Then, how do we identify alternative solutions? We must identify all different possible solutions to the problem and then decide on the cause. Decide on what? On the cause. Then how do we evaluate alternative solutions? We must consider the advantages and the disadvantages of each alternative solution. Then, how do we choose the best solution? We must set criteria, good people, for the best solution in terms of aspect such as time, cost, risk involved. And we must be able to identify which solution will be used. Those are the things that they want you to know. How do we develop an action plan? We must arrange necessary resources and delegate tasks. How do we implement the action plan? We must carry out planned actions or solutions. How do we evaluate the solution? We must assess whether the problem has been solved, partially or entirely. I believe that makes sense. And good people, there are problem solving techniques that we should know. And the one that I'm not going to count, please stay away from it. The one that I won't count, stay away from it. The one that I want you to focus on, brainstorming, it's going to be there in your examination and you will remember me. Dalfu technique, it's going to be there in your examination and you will remember me. Force field analysis, it's going to be there in your examination and you are going to remember me. Nominal group technique is going to be there in your examination. I said brainstorming, Dalfu technique, force field analysis, nominal group technique. Does that make sense? I believe that makes sense. When we talk about brainstorming, what are we simply talking about? When we talk about brainstorming, good people, members state possible causes of the business problems. That's a brainstorming. It has a time limit for each brainstorming session. That's a brainstorming. Then what are we talking about? When we talk about force field analysis, when we talk about force field analysis, describe the current situation or problem and the desired solution. What is a nominal group technique? When we talk about nominal group technique, good people, it encourages employees to ask clarity-seeking questions. I believe it makes a lot of sense. Nominal group technique, collect ratings and calculate total points. Then what is Dalfu technique? When we talk about Dalfu technique, it's whereby the business must invite a panel of aspects to research the complaints from customers. An aspect do not have to be in one place and will be conducted individually. I believe that makes sense. I believe it makes a lot of sense. Let us now move to the next question. They're going to say to you, good people, advise businesses on how they can apply the above mentioned business, problem solving techniques to solve complex business problems. And we must be able to discuss the impact of problem solving techniques stated above. What is the impact of Dalfu technique? What is an impact of brainstorming? What is an impact of force field analysis? They are there, positives and negatives. You must know them. elaborate on the meaning of creative thinking. You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of creative thinking. You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of creative thinking. You must be able to elaborate on the meaning of creative thinking. You must be able to elaborate, good people, on the meaning of creative thinking. Does that make sense? And recommend ways in which business can create an environment that promotes creative thinking in the workplace. And good people, you must explain the benefit or advantages of creative thinking in the workplace. Definitely everything is going to be possible because being creative thinking, it's something that it makes the business to succeed. That's what I can say. Does that make sense? For those ones who want to do business roles, those are the questions that they should focus the most. And I said your possible essay, it may be ethics and professionalism. I believe that makes sense. If they didn't put ethics and professionalism, it's going to be what? Creative thinking and problem solving. But I believe that it's going to be ethics and professionalism. On business ventures, good people, the first question that we should know, we must know, we must be able to identify the leadership style from a given scenario and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. I believe that makes sense. We must be able to identify leadership style from a given scenario and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. We must be able to identify leadership style from a given scenario and also do what? Motivate by quoting from the scenario. What are the leadership style that do we have, good people? We have a democratic leadership style. We have autocratic leadership style. We have laissez-faire or what? Free region. We have charismatic. We have transactional. Those are the leadership style that you should be thinking about, which you must be able to identify from a given scenario. And you must motivate or quote from the given scenario. I guess no one is going to get that one wrong. And good people, you must know the impact of leadership style. You must know the impact of the leadership styles. And you must know the situation in which leadership style can be applied in. I believe that makes sense. And when it comes to the role of personal attitude in successful leadership, you must be able to explain or discuss the role of personal attitude in successful leadership. And you must be able to quote the role of personal attitude in successful leadership from a given scenario. When we move to the functions of JSE, you must be able to discuss the functions of JSE, which is Johannesburg Securities Exchange. And you must be able, good people, when it comes to the factors to consider when making investment decisions, you must be able to discuss liquidity, taxation, inflation rate, investment term or period, risk, and also return on investment. Then, when it comes to investment opportunities and their risk factors, you must be able to explain or discuss mutual funds or stokvel, managed portfolio, venture capital, 32-day notice account, debitors, endowment, retirement, annuities. And good people, when it comes to 4 forms of investment, RSA, retail saving bonds, unit trust, shares, or fixed deposit, you must be able to identify the form of investment from a given scenario and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Does that make sense? And you must be able to explain the impact of RSA, which is retail savings bond, unit trust shares, and fixed deposit. When it comes to 4 types of shares, which is ordinary, preference, founders, and bonus, you must be able to identify types of shares from the given scenario, which I'm saying to you, it's going to be what? Ordinary, preference, founders, and bonuses. And you must be able to discuss the types of shares. So I believe, good people, we're going to be able to identify types of shares in a given scenario. Number 2, we're going to discuss the types of shares, the types of preference shares. And good people, the rights of ordinary and preference shareholders, they are going to be there. And you must be able to know the meaning of the concept, which is what? Debitors, dividend, capital gain, simple and compound interest. You must know them because they are going to be there. They are going to be there in your examination and you will remember me. They are going to be there in your examination and you are going to remember me, good people. Let us move forward. We must be able to calculate simple and compound interest from a given scenario. We must be able to recommend the best investment option based on the calculations. We must be able to distinguish between simple and compound interest. Does that make sense? We must elaborate on the meaning of the concept. We must explain the difference between over and under insurance. We must differentiate between insurance and assurance, and also the examples, which is you must give examples of short-term and long-term insurance. You must identify the principles of insurance from a given scenario. And you must be able to discuss those principles of insurance that you found there in a scenario. And you must be able to apply the average cloud to calculate the compensation in the case of underinsurance. And you must explain or discuss the advantages of insurance. You must explain the meaning of insurable and non-insurable risk. And good people, you must name 3 types of compulsory insurance. For instance, number 1, unemployment insurance fund, road accident fund compensation, road accident fund, and also compensation for occupational injuries and diseases fund. And you must be able to differentiate between compulsory and non-compulsory insurance. I guess we are done with today's question. So make sure that you practice those questions, good people. You would never go wrong. Make sure that you practice those questions. You would never go wrong, and you are going to remember me. Does it make sense? Let us meet again tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, I will be live. We'll be answering a certain question paper. All the best with your examination.